What's good, y'all, and welcome to a brand new movie review. My God, man, it's been too long since I last said that. God, can this year end so I can go back to reviewing movies on a more consistent basis? But anyway, I digress. So, today, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally looking at the New Mutants. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the movie came out. It has been released, and I have laid my eyes on it, and I have watched it. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is not an alternate dimension. You are on the main Earth. You have not transported to another dimension. This is all reality, ladies and gentlemen. In all seriousness, man, first off, I was shocked that it actually came out. That was the first thing. I was like, oh my God, finally, New Mutants has finally graced the masses, and we can finally watch it, see if it was any good. And to be fair, this was probably one of the most original superhero films I have seen, at least in a while. Like, I legitimately love this film. This was way better than I thought it was going to be. It definitely has its issues. If you were to ask me between this and Dark Phoenix, which one I thought was the better X-Men film, I'd honestly give the slight edge over to Dark Phoenix. That's just me personally. But now, let us jump right in, ladies and gentlemen. The movie is directed by Josh Bone and stars Anya Taylor-Joy, Maisie, I think I say her name, Maisie Williams, Charlie Hayden, Henry Zaga, Blue Hunt, Alice Barga, I think they say her name, and many more. And the plot of the New Mutants is you have 5 teenagers who have recently awakened to their powers that are locked up in this facility to help better control their powers, and before they can finally be released back into with the public and everything. Now, the one thing that we all know that was definitely the biggest selling point for this film when it was first announced, when we first saw the trailer, and then before it got delayed to shit, because like I said, I think I mentioned this before in some other videos, and I think I mentioned this in my unboxing. When the first trailer came out, when I saw Logan is when I saw the trailer for the New Mutants, when it was gonna come out before it got delayed to shit along with Dark Phoenix, this was going to be in a more horror direction. Now apparently there was supposed to be some reshoots where they were going to go away from that, make it more contemporary, but apparently those didn't happen, so they stuck with the horror shit, and a lot of shit. This movie was definitely had production hell throughout the later part of its production. But anyway, the horror thing was definitely the one thing that probably had most of us interested when we saw the trailer before it got delayed, and that we all didn't care about, because that was me. After the movie got delayed, like as much as it did, I just didn't care anymore. My hype levels for the movie were pretty much completely gone, and I just wanted the movie to at least be good when it finally came out and when I finally saw it, and it blew away my expectations. But anyway, back to the horror shit. When we actually see when the movie does go into those more horror elements, like a lot of time it usually has to deal around time when we get to their backstories. I'm going to say spoiler free as I can right now, but I will go more in depth in a spoiler discussion at the end of the video. But when we actually do see when the movie does go into that, when we see those horror elements show face, they are done really well, and they were like really, really cool, and I always enjoyed them. They were definitely some of the best parts of the film for me personally. Were definitely those horror segments when we definitely get there. Another thing I love the look of this film. Like it being like this, like almost abandoned little hospital or whatever. You're wondering, like it really fitted the horror vibe. And I also really dug the security cameras. See, throughout this hospital, they have these security cameras all over the place, and actually in them they have like these little holograms or these HUDs that show like the mutants, they're like, I guess their heart rates and some other stuff when they're like start to spike and their powers start to go a little crazy. Whenever we saw that, I always thought that also looked really, really fucking cool. But and the cast was also great as well. With I would probably say the highlight being Anya Taylor-Joy as Magic, aka Lianya, because she was the one character I was the most excited to see when I finally saw this film, considering I dug her from the few handful of times we saw her in the X of Swords comic event, which you guys watched my comic reaction, you guys probably saw that. I really dug her a few times. We actually saw her in the X-Men books there, so I was really curious to see what she was actually like, in I guess her own series when she, in the New Mutants and everything. And I was shocked to find out how much of an asshole she is. Now, I don't know if she's actually like this in the comics, or this was like something they did for the movie by itself, or she was like this earlier on in her comic run when the New Mutants were finally first introduced back in the 90s or whatever. But I was shocked to see how much of a bitch she was to Danny at the start of the film. You know, she called her Pocahontas and all that shit. Like, I loved her and I enjoyed her. I found her to be very tame, but I was shocked. And I was like, damn, can you lay off on this poor girl? And might I say, that accent she has is really fucking odd. Like, what is that? Is that like a Russian accent? Supposed to be some accent from like some alien dialect? What is that? I must know. And by the way, I'm about to go off on a little tangent right here quick, but Anya Taylor-Joy, man, is she hot. Like, if y'all saw my Greta review, you guys know that I think that if you were to ask if you were asking me who was the hottest chick in Hollywood currently, I say it's Chloe Grace Moretz. But not gonna lie, Anya is like really starting to catch up to her now. I first noticed that when I watched The Witch back on Halloween. I was like, yo, this girl is actually really hot. And when we get to that third act, oh boy, and we see those blue eyes, woo! But anyway, back on topic. So she was good. The rest of the cast were also great in their own right. Rayan was great. I really dug the rest of the cast. Rayan, Sam, Berto, all the guys. They were all great. And also the actors that portrayed them also did great jobs with their characters. Alice Barga was also another one I really liked. She plays the Dr. Reyes, and I really dug her character with the whole film. Even though it's kind of obvious she's the one behind everything and all that shit, I thought she was cool. You do almost buy for saying that she is trying to help them, but I mean, this isn't a spoiler because we all kind of knew from the trailer that she was the one behind this, facility. We just didn't know what it was exactly for, but I really dug her. Another thing I really dug was actually the relationship between Danny and Rain. And I'm not going to go too far into it, but the friendship that kind of blossomed between the two, I really dug them. They all had nice chemistry together, and I really dug them. I thought they were cool. I already mentioned the horror elements. I thought were also great. Of course, Leonia, every time she was on screen, she was the highlight. And the third act was also something that I also loved as well. The final act when you got the new mutants actually using their powers and everything, teaming up and everything. Great shit. Now, let's move on to the flaws of how it's filmed. The one thing that I also didn't really, because while I love this film and I thought it was like one of the most original takes we see a superhero movie and everything, it really doesn't have that much to it. Like, there isn't so much of substance, I would necessarily say, outside those horror elements, because the plot is pretty generic. The characters are not the most developed third dimension. Like, they are kind of a bit more generic. They get the job done. They're not so generic that they're like, ugh, whatever, but they're generic enough to where I don't see these characters be on anyone's top 10 lists, if y'all know what I mean. I don't know if this is how they are in the comics as well when they were first, because I'm pretty sure most of these characters are like super obscure from like probably the 90s and probably about, I don't know. But if actually most of these characters are still in the New Mutants the new Mutants comic that debuted with the whole Dawn of X stuff, I might actually start reading because I did really dig most of these guys. But the characters are pretty generic, and the horror elements, they never really go full on with it. They never go full on with the horror stuff. They always kind of like dip a little bit in there, but not completely commit. Because, like I said, the one scene where you saw those people like kind of like pushing through the walls or whatever, when Danny had like one of her dream sequences or whatever, that's not actually in the final film. Like I said, unless I missed it. Unless I blinked and I missed it. And I would have liked to see them go more in depth with the horror modes, really dissect these characters. And I think they could have done a lot more to the characterizations for the film as well if they really went all in with the horror elements, showed us what really made these characters tick, and dissected them for us to get a better idea of who they actually are, and that could have made them a lot more engaging, I guess you could say, or just make them a little bit more and make them more developed and more well-rounded characters, I would say. Because like I said, the characters don't really have much substance to them. They're all kind of a bit more generic, on the more generic side. And really, that's all I really have to say without going into spoilers. But overall, this is a movie that I was actually very shocked, very surprised by, that I would recommend. If you guys are even mildly interested in seeing if the New Mutants are any good, I would definitely give it a watch. I think you'll end up mostly enjoying it if you were like me, who went to this movie with next to zero expectations because of all the delays. And I think you'll end up being pleasantly surprised by this film. Will it be as great as some other X-Men films like X2 or Logan or Days of Futures Past or whatever? No. But I would say on superhero films, it is definitely one of the more original ones. Not some to the extent of like an Unbreakable, but like Unbreakable was one of the most original films. It was also very ahead of its time, but there's so much more to Unbreakable that's just in a whole different category of its own compared to something like the New Mutants. But overall, I would recommend you guys check this movie out if you guys are interested in checking out the New Mutants. So, my final verb before we jump right into the spoiler discussion is a 9 out of 10. I love this film, and I would low-key like to see a sequel to this, seeing what they can do more with these characters, maybe develop them a lot more, maybe go full on with the horror elements, and I would like to see if we would get some more and see these characters again. Will we get one? Probably not, but it would be cool. Now, let's move on to the spoiler discussion. If you guys have not seen the film and don't want to get spoiled, click off the video right now. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is I really dug all the back was whenever we saw Lianya's backstory with like these smiling people. First off, they looked creepy as hell. So props to the CGI artists. They did a really good job with her. And I really dug her, and I thought she was probably the most developed character that we got out of anyone, based because she is also the most well-known out of all the cast, so she probably got a little bit more extra screen time because she is probably the most well-known out of this entire cast. But I really dug her backstory when we find out, like, I guess we're like these smart people. That's another thing we never really got. I wish we figured out more about Leon. I know most of y'all were telling me, oh, Glenn, just read the comics, but, you know, I shouldn't have to read the comics to get a little bit more about who these characters are and what their backstories were, because I would like them to go a little bit more about like these smiling people. Who are they? Why were they after her? And all that other shit, because we never really get much of that. And that's another thing I had, is that this movie does a lot of telling without showing. Like we never see any of these characters' powers first flare up and they maybe cause problems. We never actually, I feel like if they actually showed us this rather than them just telling us, it could have added a lot more to their characters, made them more sympathetic, and it could have just added a lot more to the film, I would say. That's another thing I literally that I was also thinking about right after what I was thinking about, was that they really should have showed us how, when their powers first flared up and the problems that caused them, what actually brought them here was, and how that brought them here, you know. I feel like that could have added a lot more to these characters if they actually showed us their powers first flaring up and them awakening the XG. But Danny's power, I thought, was one of the more original ones that we've gotten in a superhero film, because the whole now that's one of the whole thing is you figure out pretty quickly that she's most likely the one behind, you know, the heart, everyone getting their fears projected out to. And it's also not the original, because it did this as well, but like 2 years ago when the two-parter came for that. But then again, Danny could have been around, was probably might have been written back in the 90s, so it might have been before it was even made. But whatever. So I'm not going to hold that against the film. But I thought for a superhero film, we never really see a hero that, at least not someone that isn't obviously a villain, with a power like that. You know, someone that can project your fears and make you live through them over and over again until it kills you or whatever. I thought it was really original, and I thought it was one of the more original powers we've seen, or mutant powers really, that we've really seen in really anything superhero related. And when we actually see the Demon Bear itself, and the whole fight between Lianya versus the Demon Bear, I thought was great. I also really dug the design of the Demon Bear. But the one thing that I think was probably the more pleasantly surprising thing was actually the lesbian relationship between Danny and Rihanna, because there hasn't really been that many more lesbian relationships really at all in film, and even less are they actually done well, or do I actually tolerate? Because a lot of the times when you think of like same-sex relationships, you usually think of the forced yaoi ships that plague a lot of fandoms in anime and manga, like Naruto, Hiroaka, etc., etc., etc. You know, we all know how those turn out, and they're cancerous as hell. But rarely have we ever really seen that many same-sex relationships, and even less so do they actually seem like they actually work. Like Ellie and Dina in The Last of Us Part 2 is an example of it being done right, and if they're done like that, I have no problems with it. This is another one of the relationships that is done really right. I really dug the relationship between Danny and Rhea. I found them to be really cute, and it was also kind of funny that I found like how the films did the whole gay mutant shit way better than the actual comics. Because for you guys that don't know, I think I want to say like 2015 when Marvel was going full on with the diversity shit, they turned Iceman gay for no reason. Now you might be wondering, oh Glenn, they made the Iceman's gay. What's the big deal? See, the problem is with Iceman. Now look, if they had made another gay mutant a mutant who is gay, and they did the whole, and he like finds a boyfriend or whatever, and they do that whole thing. I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think there actually are some other gay mutants that exist, and I think one of them was actually in the Extremist Age of X-Men miniseries that I read like 2 years ago. That I really dug his character. I thought he was cool. But the problem with Iceman is that through the entirety of his comic run, he has always been seen as like more of a playboy, a guy that always gets in with the ladies, all that shit. And then like years later, Jean Grey says, "Oh, by the way, you're gay actually." And then, see, the problem is that could have still worked. A mutant who doesn't want it, that stays in the closet because he doesn't want to get even more ridiculed than he already is because he's already a mutant, and then the whole gay shit would just make it worse. That actually is an interesting story that I would like to see get told. The problem is his 2 solo series he got afterwards were fucking shit. If I remember, I will leave links to just some guy's videos he did on those Iceman miniseries or whatever, done by, I think his name is Cena Grace. Y'all can see for yourself just how bad they were and how they did Iceman really dirty with the whole game. I think it was fucking stupid because it shows you just how lazy these SJWs really are and how desperate Marvel was to like, oh, look at us, we're diverse, instead of creating new mutants. Instead of creating like new mutants or new X-Men or new characters to, start from ground up and then build them up and have them be gay or whatever and have them be well written. The problem is, but they thought, oh, we'll just take a well-established character and just make him gay. Who cares? That takes care of that gets rid of all the legwork. And it failed miserably because who in their right mind believes it? There was also another miniseries the Iceman had back in 2004 where there was apparently like this woman that claimed she had Bobby's kid, and then he wound up saving her, but I think she was lying, but it only showed you just how much he cares about the women Bobby loves, which once again goes against the whole gay shit. He's singular gay the entire fucking time. It's fucking stupid. So I was finding the kind of humor that the movies actually did it pretty well here. And I pray to God when the X-Men are into the MCU, they don't go with the gay shit with Bobby and they keep the man straight. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Anyway, guys. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there because I found that kind of humorous when I felt like, a lesbian relationship was actually done well in something X-Men released. Ha ha ha! Why can't the comics be this good? Why can't the comics get it right? But yeah, man. So that's really all I gotta say on the New Mutants. I was pleasantly surprised by how well this film turned out, and it's definitely one of the more original ones. And I think it was definitely a film that I definitely enjoyed watching. Now, do I see myself going back and rewatching this film like religiously or whatever? No, but I thought it was a nice, interesting take on the superhero genre in a lot of the same ways like Unbreakable, but I wouldn't say to the same extent. And I hope that one day it would get a sequel, or we see this concept revisited with a superhero movie with a more horror aspect to it. Because New Mutants did pretty well. Whenever they did the horror stuff, it was done really well, and I would love for them to go full on with it. And hopefully one day we do see that. So yeah, man, that is all I gotta say on the New Mutants. Tell me down below you guys saw the New Mutants. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you disappointed? Were you surprised by it? What are some of your favorite New Mutants characters? What comics do you like that you think I should check out? Because I'm low-key curious to start reading some New Mutants comics after watching this film. Anyway, guys, excuse me. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. If you like, if you did, subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, links down in the description box below. And as always, come back for more. See you guys next time.